Welcome to One-on-One with Colette Linden. This week we are interviewing all the candidates for mayor, and today we start off with Robert Peace. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome, number one.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. Appreciate that. So tell me, what is your plan? Because mental health and addictions is a big problem here. As you know, I've been to your most recent forum that you held, and a lot of people spoke up about that. We talked about speeding. We talked about crime. We talked about what are you going to do that's different. I think everybody watching wants to know that. What is Robert Peace bringing to the table from Southern Ontario, who loves our city? What are you going to do?
Well, first of all, I can tell you I'm not bringing anything from Southern Ontario
that is a very
to the
smart,
city.
Yeah, because they don't know anything as 705 exists past Barrie, let's be honest.
Well, and let's be honest, the homeless addiction mental health issue has baffled the entire North America.
Yes.
So this is not Robert Peace coming from the South knowing everything and I'm going to fix Sault Ste. Marie. Mm-hmm. No, what I've been doing the last 2 years is meeting frontline people and talking to them and saying, you're on the streets. What is going right? Mm-hmm. What is going wrong? And from the very beginning, when I came to Sault Ste. Marie, and I met a gentleman named Dr. Hergott, who had many years' experience here in the Soo, obviously as a doctor, and we looked at the complete lack of what they call a continuum of care dealing with mental health and addictions and substance use disorders. Mm-hmm. And that is where, with any other kind of disease, as I told the other night, if you have a heart attack, there is a protocol and a continuum of care from the time you go to hospital to doing all the tests, to discovering you need a heart bypass, to doing that surgery right there, to then staying in hospital till you're able to go out, to then maybe when you go out, maybe you don't have family or things, so there's someone visiting you, to then eventually you're up and you're at the Y and you're doing exercise. There's a whole program from start to finish.
Yes.
They do not bring you into the hospital, open up your chest, and then say, oh, we got to stop now, come back in 9 months and we'll finish the surgery. And that's the way it works right now in our system. Okay. So we do not have a continuum of care. We're going to build this withdrawal management center. Mm-hmm. What happens when people come out and, they've, I won't say beat their addiction, it's like alcoholism, you've never beaten it, but they've gotten off the substance, let's say.
Yes.
But then they're waiting 9 months for the next step. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're just going to go right back into it if we don't have a continuum of care.
Okay.
The other problem is that the entire system needs to be reimagined. We can't sit here in Sault Ste. Marie and continue to rely on $100 million, $10 million facilities and things. I mean, look at the facility that's being built right now with $1 million landscape budget, and that it's going to look beautiful for photo ops. But do we need that, or do we need a few more people holding somebody's hand through something? Mm-hmm.
I think obviously those are rhetorical questions. I get the point. What are you going to do? What do we do to get us there?
Right. So what we have to start, and after talking to people, what is it that you have to do? Well, you have to reimagine the system. So first of all, you have to understand that mental health, education, addiction, homelessness, they're all related. Mm-hmm. And usually one causes the other, which causes the other. Okay. Some of them in different orders. Okay, so you have to treat the entire thing. Mm-hmm. The problem with the system right now, too, is that it treats the addiction, but it doesn't treat why that happened in the first place. So that's usually trauma. It usually happens at an early age. I've heard the heart-wrenching stories of, the girl who at 13, the mother gets divorced, has alcoholic boyfriends who rape her at 14. At 15, the mother is giving her opioids to keep her quiet because she needs the boyfriend to exist with the thing. At 16, a nice guy from Toronto takes her to escape all this, gets her on heroin and gets her into prostitution. And then eventually at 20, she comes back to the Soo because her sister rescues her. But by that time, she's an addict, stealing from everybody, and the family can't cope with it. That's the kind of thing when people say, oh, those people made choices. There was no choice for that 13-year-old girl, and I'm still seeing that even worse today in the Soo. So we have to look at a holistic system, which does not exist right now. We have a lot of different well-intentioned programs that don't talk to each other. If you ever follow an addict's journey of what they have to go through, first of all, you're not in a right state of mind. And to have to make 6 appointments on 6 different dates at 6 different locations, it's ridiculous. So the one good thing is they are putting some of these services all under one roof. And we have to do the same thing with homelessness. We have to do the same thing with mental health. And we cannot just treat these things in a way. We're developing programs for able-bodied people that we expect people with these illnesses, diseases, disorders to be able to function in. So now some people blow back at me and say, well, a mayor can't do that. That's for the province. That's for the federal government. Well, you know what? A mayor represents 70,000 people, and he has a voice. Our politicians in the past have decided to keep quiet and deal with things behind closed doors and things like that. That's one way. But sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
I agree with you. And like I said, full transparency is the reason why, I wanted to have these interviews with all candidates. But also, I'm just, I've been in politics for a long time, doing the beat, and you hear every promise under the sun. But, and honest, you've heard them too. Everybody's heard them. But so yeah, your holistic approach is perfect. That's absolutely wonderful. I agree with you 100%. Now it's the planning stages. Now it's this and that. And like, how quickly does that get turned into us having something for places to go for our family? Also, planning, I thought in the last 4 years, let's say 3 years, to be honest with you, since I've been here for 3 years. The last 3 years, the city has planned, I don't know, we never see the plans,
It's reactionary. Look what happened on the front of City Hall. Reactionary. This comes to a head. We eventually get the people out. We put them in a motel. We give volunteers the responsibility to take care of them. The hotel takes out the phones, the toilet paper, there's no food. What are we expecting? People with mental health disorders put in a hotel with no supervision. The supervisor of that program walks away, leaves a couple of women who have a volunteer group in charge of this group of people that need professional help. What are we expecting? Like, these are reactionary things. There is a candidate here running for mayor who has been in politics for 8 years now as a councillor. I know he has a long list of things that he's put forward, many of which have not actually come to fruition. But let's be honest, this problem did not just happen yesterday. So where has the vision been? We've got another candidate who has blatantly said, I'm not a visionary. And I think we can't afford that. We need a vision. And if we want to get into some specific things, I'd like to talk about, for example, the homelessness problem. Because this is something that, again, we now have a task force that's, first of all, it's human nature to want to live in a community. And it's human nature to live with others who are similar to us. So, of course, you're going to get these tent cities. This is not only in Sault Ste. Marie. Look at the horrific situations in California and in Vancouver. So our little tent city was starting to establish itself at Gore and Albert. And of course, the public is afraid. There's things going on there. I mean, these people are not generally being violent to other people in the area, but it's not aesthetically pleasing, and the neighbors who live in the area don't want that. So what is the solution? The solution isn't we've got a plan. The solution is come in with bulldozers, rip out the seats, rip out the picnic tables, rip out the nice gardens that some people were using and planting things. And literally, I was there when it was happening, and all those people are sitting on the other side of the street on somebody else's house and then dissipating into the backyards and sheds of other people. What did we solve? Now we're going to have a task force that goes out and sends social workers out looking for all these people to try and convince them to come to a home that they don't want to go to. So we've now spread the problem out, not in my backyard, pushed it into everybody else's communities, And then now we're having this task of having to send paid staff out to look for them. Maybe we have to look at something that I saw being done when I was in the Ukraine to a response that, you know, when your city's blown up and everybody's come to another city and you have 20,000 more people you have to deal with today, you don't have time to sit and say, let's ask the federal government for this, let's wait 3 years for this. People got together and said, you know what, we have an empty school. You know what? It's not perfect. You know what? We can get some heat and water in there, and we can give these people a space for the winter. We can have all the services go to that one location, so we're not looking for everybody all over the place. Low impact stuff, lawn chairs, chaise lounges, things, stuff people have on Facebook sites, blankets, people caring for them. Some level of security, so that, you know, the greatest fear of a homeless person is that the little bits that they have, and people say everybody with a shopping cart is stealing something. No, sometimes that's their belongings of their life.
Their vehicle.
Right. So if they have a spot, they can park that and keep that in their little room, which does not have to be a hotel's quality room, then that's a level where now they're able to leave and go to an appointment assisted with somebody, because they're not afraid the little bit that they have left. And so those are the kind of things that can be done quick.
How so?
Sorry?
How so? How can that be done quickly? I
well,
love the idea.
it just needs to be, we sit around the table and say, okay, what is stopping us? Okay, so you've got all the departments and all those siloed agencies together, and you say, okay, we have to solve this week, not this year. And we're not going to set up a task force and all those things. We got all the professionals in the room right now. So first of all, I need to know real estate. What do we have? Do we have a house? Do we have something the city owns that's abandoned? Oh yeah, but it's not up to, doesn't matter, it's not up to. We're not talking about like the 5-year plan here. We're talking about today. And this is a first step. And you know, when you get little wins, suddenly people say, oh, this worked. And now we can take it to the next level. So now we've got the house or the building or whatever it is. Okay, what services are we going to need? Well, we're going to need heat and water. Okay, well, does the city have a few bucks for that? Yes. Okay, that's pretty minimal. Okay, social services. You're sending your staff running around all over the place to find these people. We're going to have them all here in one spot. Does that work for you? Sure does. What kind of things are we going to need for mental health? What kind of things are we going to need for addiction? What kind of things? Oh, I can supply that. Yeah, we've got somebody for that. Good. Okay, we've taken care of that. Now, what are we going to do about food? Okay, we got to get some partners on board, food banks, whatever. Do we need granola bars for people that don't have teeth? No, the people in the field say we need bananas. So let's talk to the people that are dealing with this every day. There are ways to do this, and it's done in other places. And as I say, when I came back from the Ukraine and saw how they did things, their own communities took ownership, not sitting back on a Facebook site complaining about everything, but actually came down, and a mayor painting a wall, or somebody saying, you know, I got a mop, I'll scrub the floor today. That's all doable.
Okay, let's talk about generating revenue for a moment too. And just further to that point, I appreciate you answering that on the spot. Like I said, no questions were prepared beforehand, so I appreciate the transparency. My concern is emergency preparedness plan, let's be honest. So if anything over the last couple of years taught us, we need to have a fund. Personal, business, city, government, doesn't matter. You need to have, or try and have, I mean, I think my fund might be a couple tunes at the moment, but hey, you know, we're working toward it. So an emergency preparedness plan, would that not help with what you're saying? To put things into fruition immediately, or to have these emergency teams? Because we can't wait. It is a problem, you know, and as you said, and then that kind of snowballs into the next thing, and then we're going to crime. And I'm not suggesting it's all the same. The homelessness is related, but you know, everything is related.
It is all related
because you're grasping at straws to survive. So
we also have a police department that's probably spending 70% of their time responding to the same 100 people.
100%. Now, tell me while we're on that, what's your thought on relocating that police station?
So. After having spoken with the chief and having spoken with officers and a number of people, because again, I think this is what's key. Sometimes, you know, sometimes you get into city politics and the only people you're speaking to are the bureaucrats, who are professionals and I'm not saying that people who work in City Hall are not the people who are the engines of how things work, but you need the political side, and the political side is responsible for going out and speaking to the citizens, not the bureaucrat. So we're supposed to bring the political part of that. So when you speak to the officers on the street and not just the chief, but in this case, speaking to the chief and the officers and all these people, there is a need for a new office. It has outgrown it. However, my biggest concern is this, that do we want another hospital fiasco where we're going to have yet another abandoned building? So I want to know before there's any move, what are we going to do with that building?
Good.
And it is limited because of the way it's constructed. You're not going to probably be able to build condos there. So maybe some kind of modified office space. How much is that needed these days? So I really want to see before there's any talk of moving the building, what are we going to do with the old building?
Good. And I think a lot of things that the past government, municipal government did, or council did, was a lot of projects like, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this, let's do that. I'm pretty sure a lot were left undone. I know they were. And then a lot were rushed to complete, which doesn't sit well with the taxpayers here, which doesn't sit well with the residents here, because it's like you weren't taken, it's almost as if you weren't taken under, not advisement or counsel, or just notification of said, hey, Sault Ste. Marie, this is the plan for the next 4 years. And I'm not saying you can't alter from that plan, because seriously, life happens. But what about just engaging the community a little bit more? Like, what are you going to do? What's your first year in office? If you, hey, Robert Peace, you win, you're at your first council meeting.
Well, one of the things, it won't be so much about the first council meeting. What it will be about, and this is again where I come back, that there is no way in 2022 that this should be a part-time job. And I am not suggesting a penny more has to be spent on it. I'm offering to say I'm willing to do this as a full-time job from day one. And what that means is, first of all, doing what successful CEOs do. You know what they do? They go around and meet every staff person that works for you, every department, sit down and talk to those, not just the ones that are reporting to you, not just the CAO and those people. Of course, you're going to listen to them, but you're going to go down into the trenches and you're going to talk to them about what are the difficulties they're having. The frontline people, these are some of the people that came to me last weekend and sat down and said, we're doing everything we can. We were told that we were going to give them these resources. Here's what the website even says the resources are, but here's what we actually have. And it's not what they did, because nobody's like making this connection. Or we haven't had a communication with our department for 6 months. So we have a new program and nobody knows if it's working or not. Those are the kind of political management type things that you are not going to do by showing up to a council meeting half hour before, reading your brief, voting, and then going back to your day job.
I understand.
So you got to go, I want to go and meet all the various departments and give them a sense of pride about what they're doing, and that somebody is watching what they're doing, that somebody in the political arena is recognizing that. And then maybe, well, it's proven that the performance we're going to get, and these things about, oh, city staff, they don't care about this, or the guys plowing the roads don't care. Well, maybe it's because nobody's cared about them.
Well, yes, and like I think we did discuss a little bit about roads when I was at your event not too long ago. But a lot of issues is make the residents' day easier. Just on the winter clearing for that. The snow that gets piled in front of the driveways. I know it happens to everybody, and I hydroplane right over top of it and probably get stuck on it a few too many times. But little things like that shows your community that you care enough to do that.
Has the mayor gone out with one of the drivers?
That's what I'm trying to say. Retrain your winter maintenance. You're as a municipal government, you're part of an AMO, or Association of Municipalities Ontario Good Roads Association, who offer all these courses for municipal workers. And every municipality, by the way, pays into that, which comes from our taxpayers' dollars. So why are you not sending your staff to these courses, which teach them? So, use the resources available that you're already paying into because you're a member of, number one. Again, it's only not too much a year for those membership fees, but still, it doesn't matter if it's a penny. That's taxpayers' money.
It's investing in your staff. So you have to do that.
Yes.
And they have to feel accountable, and they have to feel part of something too. So again, that's what every good CEO of large multinational companies will do. When they first take office, they will take 3 or 4 weeks to travel across the country and try and meet with every single person, walk in their shoes, see what. A lot of these issues that get raised very superficially are often much more complex than simply, oh, they did this because they didn't care. No, they did this because they were told if they didn't get 10 roads done in 5 minutes, they were going to be in trouble. So maybe we have to look at the realities.
Yeah, true. Okay, another couple issues, and I know I could talk your ear off here, but it is important that we do take the time to discuss with you, because this is not, not to say anything about the counselors' interviews or anything like that, but I really want to sit with the mayors, the candidates, and to make sure that everybody has the right to vote for the right person.
Yes.
Voter engagement is a big deal. Obviously, we know, and that's not just in Sault Ste. Marie. Voter engagement in any part of North America, any part of the world, I would go out and say it's difficult to encourage people to go to the polls, but their voice does matter. Now, it's just. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears for a second. So when I moved here a couple years ago, I would hear stuff about Jamestown, and working for the media outlet specifically, it's like, why didn't they have a park? Why did it take 3 years for them to get a park done? But over here in this nice part of the Sault Ste. Marie, the park's done. Or a resident of Jamestown has reached out to a counselor who has not responded. That needs to end. And moving on, it doesn't matter where you live in this city. Don't care, there's Jamestown, I live in the West End, there's Bayview, I don't care where your pea patch, you're paying tax dollars, you're paying, and you deserve to be a voice. So how do you ensure that, they're getting listened, they're getting heard, they're listening to? Because, specifically there was a park in Jamestown that took months, years.
Yes.
It really did.
That somebody launched their campaign in front of and then kind of abandoned it.
Absolutely. So why should those children not have a park to play with that summer? They had that park done at the end of summer. Way to go, guys. Come on, it's ridiculous. So to me, the planning process has to be transparent. It has to be made public too.
Yes.
Let the people know what the heck your plans are and what's going on, and stick to those plans. And again, the mill market, I know this is a controversial issue, but people are ticked and pissed because that was an additional money that was kind of just quickly hurried along in a special meeting of council without, for 5 extra vendors?
I think in most cases what ends up happening is that things are not, I've seen things not well sold to the public. So if you only listen to what the loudest people said, you might not do a single thing in Sault Ste. Marie. It may be cut taxes, don't do anything, build a wall around my house, I'm okay, Jack, forget about those homeless people, and forget about this and that, and we don't need parks and things like that, right? So it is a balance of bringing some value added as a mayor, to the community, but of course you want to hear from them. Now, on the flip side, I've been involved in politics many years ago on the other side of the fence, where as a politician or as a ministry or a government, you go out. The downtown plaza, which I would prefer to call a square these days, because I think another thing that was poorly marketed to people, there's no understanding. People think it's a plaza.
Well, you say plaza, you think
a
stores.
Strip mall.
Yes.
Yeah. So, first of all, if you don't market something correctly to the people, then you're going to get all that misinformation. Then the second thing you have is that this casting a net out saying, come and have your input. Well, I went to those sessions and 2 people showed up. But there were 500 people on Keeping the Sioux Safe Facebook site, all with their own opinions. And I would say, well, come and tell those opinions.
I agreed.
So, and you would have a better informed opinion if you came and could listen to the whole story as opposed to just a headline. So often public engagement is tricky. So what I would rather see, and if you're a counselor, it's a little less challenging to return calls from citizens and things. Right now, I'm having a great time returning calls, and messages, but they are nonstop all day. And if you're going to be a mayor and do a job, you got to balance that. So I think the more effective ways are if you can have those town hall type things where many people can come at one time, just like we did the other night at my place, where I was only expecting 4 or 5 people, and then 40 people show up. But there's a way. Now, I'll tell you why politicians before, because I worked for them, why they didn't like those type of things and why they prefer an information session. Because in an information session, nobody can hear what anybody else is thinking. When you're in a group with 40 people and somebody puts up their hand and they have a concern, that triggers the light off in 30 other people who then have an opinion and an idea, and it may be a solution, because that was one of the things I said. I don't want to have a meeting that's just a gripe fest.
That's absolutely
I want
true.
people to come with ideas and solutions, so that later we say we listen to you. Not just we listen to you that you hate this, but you hate this, and here's what I would prefer. That's what we need to engage people in. And I think people will come to those things. Politicians are afraid of them because the audience can get stirred up, it can go sideways and all that. There's nothing wrong with that. We need that. Those are the most effective things, where somebody puts their hand up, starts saying, and the rest of the people start chiming in, or they say, no, we don't agree with you. And you really get a sense of people. You do not get a sense when 3 people come to a drop-in, are expected to write some essay, and they don't. They maybe sign they came in, and they leave. That's not public input.
No, and it's not a platform that most would feel comfortable communicating in as well. Okay, Robert, I have a couple questions. I'll say the one thing that I noticed when I moved here, you know, I've been to school for many, many years, and I've had very fortunate luck with an employment before moving here. So I felt ready to move on and the next step. But then I come to Sault Ste. Marie, and I don't know anybody. So try and find a job, it was very difficult. Who do you call if you need something? Well, I went to high school with that guy. So there's that club in Sault Ste. Marie, to be perfectly honest. So how do you combat that?
Well, it used to be called the Old Boys Club.
Yes.
Now maybe there's a few women in it too, but I think it's still probably that.
Yeah.
And that's something obviously I'm up against in the political realm too.
That's why I'm asking you, because you're in my situation.
Yeah,
it's tough. It is tough. And I had one job, sorry to interrupt you, Robert, I had one job interviewer who said, you know what, everything you have is great, but come back to us when you've been here, when you've lived here longer. I said, well, I can't live here without money. So, you know, it was very difficult to break in
It
here.
depends on the jobs too, okay? So first of all, you know, and this is not great news, but you know we have openings everywhere, desperation for lower wage jobs. So the service industry, we saw it this summer where hotels had to close their restaurants at 7. I got a call a month ago from Walmart saying on a Friday, I better come and pick up my prescription at the pharmacy by 5 because they didn't have enough staff to keep it open.
Okay.
So, you know, this is affecting everybody. So there are tons of jobs. Are there jobs that you know, do you want to? There are people that are needed for Tim Hortons.
Absolutely,
but you
love
may
my
be,
Tim Hortons
But you
job.
may be coming here and not able to function if you're a single person or if you have a kid. That may not be an option. So now you've got to get into a higher level job. There are now in the broadcast industry, you know, anywhere. Try and break into a market in Toronto. It's the same 20 faces for 40 years, right?
And typically, yes, absolutely.
So that's very complicated anywhere.
Yeah.
But there are companies, I was just out at a company out by the airport that is hiring, and they are hiring well-paid jobs, and they don't have the level of skills necessarily in town, so they're having to use some of these programs to bring people in.
Yes.
Then we've got, you know, if you were a vet who came here, do you think you would have 1 second of a problem opening up a business? If you were a doctor, would you have 1 second? You wouldn't need to know a single person,
That's
and
correct.
you'd have a clientele list like this. So depending on what your job is, if it's very niche, then it can be a little harder. But for the most part, there is no reason anybody has to be without a job here in Sault Ste. Marie.
All right, I'm going to ask you straight out what I'm thinking. How are we going to stop working with certain companies because their brother's mother knows their cousin from Tony and Allison or whomever? You know, that's the kind of thing I feel. And perhaps, I'm just going to put it out there because that's on my mind, and I know that I've heard other people say it. I don't know if you have the answer to it. I don't know if you want to chime in or not, but I'm giving you that opportunity too. There are a lot of connections around the city.
Yes.
A lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's about time that the other guys get an opportunity.
So when you're talking about business to business and trust and relationships, there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, if I've got a mechanic's shop here in town and you've been a client for many years and I want to give you a deal on something, or you suddenly say I'm now a fleet operator at some other company or whatever, that's how business works.
That's fine for personal.
The problem is that, yes, when we have part-time counselors, part-time mayors that all have business interests, and you even see it in the campaign creeping in, where people are talking about their own business while they're talking about policies that they would enact and things like this. I will say, and there's a lot of these people that control a lot of votes in the city. So it can be dangerous to come and attack the idea that when I came here, I had never sort of seen so much conflict. Now, it wasn't like, wild over the top, but even that's what at least you see on the surface. So, I don't know how, again, you're always going to be in a position, if you're a mayor and you're working full-time for a construction company, a law firm, a hotel, whatever it is that's doing business with the city, you could say, I'll recuse myself or I'll do this, but the network is so deep that how do you not run into these influences? And so I just think if there's an opportunity to elect somebody that isn't connected to any of that, that will leave their employer, that doesn't own a business in town, that is not connected in that kind of way. I think I need to be connected. I'm a member of the chamber.
Yes,
I know businesses. You want to be working with all those people because you need to hear them, and we're trying to make their lives better. But it's just mixing too many things and the cozy relationships. And I even think we should be looking at term limits. I think 2 terms is plenty for a mayor, for a councillor, for whoever. We need to encourage younger people to come in. And there's a couple of young candidates running who are super energized, who is super encouraged. And I know they're going to dedicate way more time than they can, but they're in a situation because they're age, they don't have kids, all that kind of stuff, that they're able to do that. And let's not shut those people out because somebody is going to, has an established life and everything, and this council thing's a nice side job, and they can gain some profile for what they're doing. That isn't really what we want.
Right.
So,
and I think the city definitely needs that change.
And that's what I'm hearing. Obviously, people who are supporting me are lots of people that say we need change. We've seen the same things go on and on and on, and the same clubs sort of together, and maybe we just need to refresh the screen a little bit.
I would remove the word maybe and say let's do that. Another couple questions. I just wanted to thank you for answering that question. I just want to know if you felt it was a help or a hindrance not having the roots of high school or grade school, or that's why I asked you that question. So I appreciate you telling me that.
I'm finding it's helping simply because there is a base out there that is looking for somebody who isn't connected that way. But at the same time, it's not like I've come here, sat in the room, and not met anybody. And that's what I love, is that I'm not sitting here crying that I don't know any businesses or that people aren't supporting my campaign financially or any of those things. I am thrilled at the level of participation. I had a super cute thing happen last night. I was walking down the boardwalk just to clear my head around 8 o'clock at night, and 2 kids, they must have been 12 or 14, come running up, and they said, hey, there's the future mayor. Hey, there's the future mayor. We want to get a selfie. And then they asked to borrow my cell phone to call their mom to see if they can get a sign on their lawn. So
hire those 2 for your campaign.
This is only in Sault Ste. Marie. Well, we do have some kids who aren't old enough to vote yet, but who have contacted us through their parents and said, we want to go out and canvass. We want. One of them came to our policy session the other night and spoke about a win that he saw down where he's from before he moved, about how they invested in their town and how things different. That was that's super encouraging. Even people who can't vote yet, getting somebody that age excited, as you said, we're lacking in that engagement of people who are either too busy because of their low-paid jobs and long hours, or they felt disenfranchised and that they haven't been part of the discussion.
That's right. If you want a city to grow, you want a family to grow, you want a business to grow, you need to train. You have succession training is necessary.
Well, that is another big thing that I'd like to sit down with the sort of barons of Sault Ste. Marie, is that we have a lot of super successful business people here in this city that have done beautiful things, and they should be applauded. What concerns me, obviously, is if they're becoming 60, 70 years old now, the last thing I would want is that, you know, that gets boarded up, they retire, and there's an empty whatever it is that they're providing. Maybe they don't have a son or daughter. Maybe they do. But have they... I think there's a role for the city to sit down with these leaders and say, what's your plan? Can we help you with that?
Yes.
Maybe we need to bring in a professional or help subsidize that, even, because we want that to be here. We want that facility for the future. We want those services for the future. And so I think we need to engage. This isn't about saying, oh, the folks that have been here for years and controlled everything, let's push them away. No, let's engage them and make sure that there is a future for all those wonderful things that they built.
Absolutely. And I think that is the problem. Succession training to some puts their ego in check, has to put their ego in check. You know, we're not putting you out of a position. Succession training is over years of...
Yes, of course. You don't want to start it a year before.
No, I'm going to retire in the summer, and you know, Joe's going to take over. No, it's succession training. I feel is very important for the city, because that's how you see your city grow.
Of course.
So, Robert, thank you so much for being here with me today. Is there any, I've been steering this the way I wanted it to go, so go ahead and steer it the way you would like to go. Is there anything that you would like to discuss before we have to end our interview?
No, I just want to thank everyone who's watching this, because it's a form of participation.
Yes, it is.
And it's you know, we're out knocking on doors. We're out going to every single event I could possibly do, because I know I haven't had 8 years in front of the media, in front of the people. And I'm excited about doing that. I'm going to do it whether I win or lose, continue, because this is my community now for the rest of my life. I've settled here. I feel good about it. And I encourage people, no matter who they support, to come out and vote. I do want to say that regardless of if I feel a candidate might not share my same vision, or maybe I might not share their same approach to things, I do applaud everyone who gets involved in the democratic process, and there should be no shaming anybody for running for mayor or council seats regardless. Absolutely, putting themselves out there in a way that other people might not be able to, so you're absolutely right. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to officially meet you and have you in the studio. That's all the time we have for today for One-on-One with Colette Linden. We'll be back tomorrow.